Sekeres and Price for Thursday, May 23rd, 2024. We're coming to you from the Nation Network studio built by Arbor Lee here at the iconic Wall Center, downtown Vancouver. And if you're looking for the perfect venue for your big day, let the wedding specialists here at Wall Center help plan your day. Connect with the team. Email sales@wallcenter.com. Matt Sekeres alongside Blake Price. Grady Sass, Hidden Switches, conducting things alongside Sean Chessman. Big show coming up, and it's all brought to you by Applewood Auto Group.
Applewood Nissan in serious fabulous deals on vehicles like the legendary Pathfinder. The 2024s are in. Go take one for a test drive. You'll see why the redesigned Pathfinder is a fabulous option for what British Columbia has to offer. Lease it for 2.99% for 24 months. Finance it as well at 2.99% for 24 months. At Applewood Nissan in Surrey, it's all good at Applewood.
Poll question today: do you expect improvement next season from these Vancouver Canucks? You can vote yes or no. Do so at the Sekeres and Price Twitter or X and YouTube accounts. So Vancouver Canucks players are in the midst of meeting the media for their season-ending press availability at Rogers Arena. We've already heard from a number of players. When Patrick Allvin, the general manager, who today has announced a finalist for the NHL Executive of the Year, and Rick Tocchet, the head coach, take the podium, we will go live there and get the comments from the Canucks decision makers, then come back and talk about what we've heard from Tocchet and Allvin. We got plenty already to talk about with Elias Pettersson, Quinn Hughes, Brock Besser having already met the media, and we'll get into that in a moment.
I would guess the final panel for the players is on right now, so we're probably 10, 15 minutes away from the
Yeah, something like that. On the poll question, I voted no. Expect is a big word right now. There is a lot of offseason business to do here. As we know, a team's evolution into cup contender is not always linear. There's oftentimes steps back. We saw that with Alain Vigneault in his second season at the helm here before they turned into a contender. Plus, so much went right for the Canucks this year. All the good health, all the PDO, particularly in the first half. So I voted no. Check back in September once we've seen the offseason, the summer business. May have a different answer then.
It's in the eye of the beholder what the question is really asking. Improvements in the regular season, it's almost impossible. I mean, that was a storybook year in the standings for the Vancouver Canucks, finishing as high as they did in the league standings, winning the division, coming also close to winning the conference. So by that metric, yeah, the answer has to be no. Can they make the playoffs? Can they make the third round next year? We'll have to see what the summer brings, but I'm not going to expect improvement next season. I mean, it was a very, very good season by most metrics. They were in the final eight, and by virtue of getting to 7 games, you could argue they finished
in the final
fifth.
5. Yeah. And you're right. It's interpreted as you see fit, whether that's regular season or postseason performance next year for the Vancouver Canucks. Already looking forward to it. That much I know. Of course, we have less time to have to wait on it when you go 7 games deep in round 2 and get past the Victoria Day weekend.
I know we as media see it this way. I hope fans do as well. Like, they got us deep enough in the calendar that, by the time we've debriefed what the season was all about, we're going to be into early June here, distracted a little bit by a Stanley Cup final as well. We're going to have, not that the Canucks have high draft picks, but we'll give a little bit of attention to the draft and negotiation windows at the end of June. And then it's going to be mid-July before you know it. Thank you very much to the Vancouver Canucks for getting as deep into the calendar as they did, because they bow out in the first round. You probably have some dog days of spring before we can get back into the offseason.
Yeah. So the big news in the opening part of this media availability was Elias Pettersson saying that he has been suffering from a nagging knee injury since January. He said the longer it went, the more pain I felt. He said it does not require any kind of offseason procedure, that rest is the recipe here to getting back to 100%. And that's interesting. That's very interesting, because on May 8th, 2 weeks ago yesterday, head coach Rick Tocchet came on out one of his press availabilities. This was just after the Edmonton series had begun. and said he wasn't concerned about anything other than a head cold, an illness with Elias Pettersson. He was asked, are you using illness to cover for another injury to Pettersson? And his quote was, "We don't lie here." And then he went on, and Patrick Johnson and the Province chronicled it, saying it was unprompted. Tocchet said he's aware that there's been speculation about whether Pettersson is carrying around some sort of injury, perhaps to his back or his wrist, but he moved to quash that speculation. He's just a little sick. And on that day, Elias Pettersson said he felt fine. Now, look, nobody was expecting Rick Tocchet to detail or even cop to an injury to Elias Pettersson on that day. But that he felt strongly enough about it to say, we don't lie here, Blake. That I'm wondering whether Elias and Rick Tocchet have different definitions of injury. How many times did we hear the coach this year and last after he took over say, there are going to be days you don't feel great. You've got to push through. And talking about everything that can be used as a crutch and excuse that hockey players have to push through, that is the culture that he is looking to instill here with these Vancouver Canucks.
But he also did provide cover for other players at times. Mikheyev was, scratched. We thought healthy scratched. No, he's dealing with a little something. Lindholm at times was given some cover that he's dealing with a little something. So he provided cover at times, cover / truth
for other players,
for other players.
For his,
So I wonder if he's going to be asked about that and to sort of clarify how that all went down.
Mm-hmm. Well, particularly since the next guy questioned about injuries, the captain Hughes, whom to the naked eye looked as injured or more than Elias, particularly in that Nashville series when they were targeting him, gave the answer that you would expect a coach and a communicator at the Tocchet level could have easily given on that day, May 8th. And that is, it's the playoffs. Everybody's got a little something. Nobody's 100%. That's how Quinn answered the question, that he wasn't feeling great, but didn't identify, blame, mention.
Said he thought he played pretty well in the playoffs. He was pretty proud of it. Yeah.
Said other than the power play.
Yeah.
Did say he thought he could do more offensively.
Pettersson also did sort of give a critical review of his play too, saying in the summer he's looking forward to, it'll be quieter. The contract stuff will be out of the way. And based on how shit I've played the last 3 months. So, he didn't fully scapegoat the injury as the reason. He also critiqued himself.
Mm-hmm. Yes. I wonder if Tocchet liked that answer better.
Yeah. Maybe.
Yeah. And look, I think the dynamic between Pettersson, Tocchet, the organization, after the extended contract matter of this year, I think that bears watching going forward. As we talked about many, many times, it was very unusual to have a player of that caliber with that kind of money awaiting him want to delay it and push it off and need to be effectively bullied to that bargaining table by the organization, by his own agents, in some cases by fans and media. Everybody wanted resolution to that matter except for Elias until he finally caved and put a pen to paper.
The other question needs to be asked here of Allvin, perhaps, why'd you let him play?
Well, that's the other thing here. If rest is required or could have done him well,
this team was in great shape as of February.
It was 2 meaningless games, Calgary, Winnipeg, if I'm not mistaken, the end of the year. Had nothing to gain and nothing to lose. Now, does that signal something to your first round opponent that not all is well with Elias Pettersson? I don't know, but
they shut down Lindholm, though.
There were opportunities to rest Pettersson. He winds up with 72 points in his first 55 games. It was a spectacular first half of the year. He was an all-star. To just 23 in his final 40 games.
They were willing to shut down Elias Lindholm, who, as a rental, is worth a lot less to them than the guy they've got signed to 7.5 more years. Why wouldn't they have rested him?
It's a great question. Brock Besser mentioned that he was crushed not to be able to play Game 7, that, of course, he sat there thinking, oh, I could have scored in this game. He said that the blood clotting issue should not affect his summer preparations. And remember, he had the big summer last year, changed the way he trained, came back in the shape that Rick Tocchet was asking for. He said, outside of, he's just got to be a little more careful that he doesn't bang his head, that he doesn't develop any cuts. He is on blood thinners, but prognosis is very good for Brock Besser going forward. Casey DeSmith outlined a groin injury that he suffered late in the second game he played, Game 3 against Nashville.
Said he wanted to play through it.
Yeah.
But the Canucks wanted a 100% goaltender rather than somebody who's playing.
And fair enough.
Yeah.
A groin injury to a goaltender. That's So Artur Shilovs takes over from that point. You do wonder whether this is the last time. We will see. Casey DeSmith in Vancouver Canucks colors, an unrestricted free agent to be. Grady, help me out here. Philip Hronek, questioned by J-Pat.
Yeah, he didn't like Jeff essentially asked if he was playing hurt and, why the dip in your production. And Hronek didn't like that. And Jeff asked about, we haven't heard from you all season. And it got a little testy, to say the least.
Well, we knew he didn't love doing media. That was the word when he came from Detroit. Anyways.
Again,
so he provided no clarity as to his struggles,
and that's not great for his negotiating power. Like, if that's healthy, Philip Hronek, if that's what you're going to go to bat with, that's me playing healthy. It doesn't look very good on you.
Yeah, I think there's something there. Whether he was, and look, you get different schools of thought with hockey players. Many don't even want to cop to injuries on this day. Don't want it seen as an excuse, and less so by fans, more so by teammates.
And damaged goods too. You get the risk of labels like that.
Right. So I'm not surprised we got varying answers from Quinn Hughes and Philip Hronek, which were effectively one case non-answer, in one case a denial of the injury, and in another case a outlining of the injury from Elias Pettersson. Answer me this. Do you think Pettersson's a Tocchet style player? Do you think these two, because he had a great final half of last year and a terrific first half of this year. So, if it was a significant knee injury or a knee injury that caused him enough pain and discomfort that he wasn't able to do everything, that computes. We also know the way Rick Tocchet wants to play, and it's not necessarily the profile of player that Elias Pettersson is.
No, I don't think Rick Tocchet probably, if he went into a lab, would create Elias Pettersson. It'd be a slightly different, but that doesn't mean Elias Pettersson can't play in the Rick Tocchet system. And we've seen that with the production in those few month spurts.
Yeah.
It's a pretty large sample size, 40, 50 games at a time. Yeah. It's a decent enough sample size that, okay, you can make it happen. Now, again, we have to reflect on the first half of this season and the last half of last year. Last half of last year, meaningless games in a system that was being taught to them on the fly. Still some remnants of the Boudreau system, et cetera, and habits from the Boudreau system. Started this year.
Yeah.
He had points, but outside of the road trip where he lit up Boston and New York, were there many nights where you thought, wow, dominant performance by Elias Pettersson? We checked the box score at the end of the night. He'd have 3 points. But I don't know that we were in awe like we have been in awe in the past, in history, of the performance of Elias Pettersson. So
well, and here's the other thing. Ian Cole has now said he didn't want to use anything as an excuse when asked about injuries. Dan Murphy saying Philip Hronek said he wasn't dealing with an injury. That's a fib. There's a reason the one-timer he took round 2 game 7 was the first one we saw from him in months.
Has to be. He was not shooting the puck.
Yeah.
And for him to resent the question, honestly.
Yeah. So, Elias also made a joke with regards to the summer. Said, nice to get a break from hearing hearing how shit I've been
Yes.
for the last few months. Well, so let me ask you this. If Elias is the only one to detail an injury here today, is that a problem?
Yeah, the other ones, I guess,
because I think you've got other guys who are injured who isn't.
Yeah, the other guys that have
Demko
talked
said
about
he
injuries.
wasn't really close to coming back.
No, he said he was. He said he was expecting.
Oh, sorry. He said he was close to coming back. Demko was the other guy who spoke about an injury, but of course, he was missing games. And
that's right. The guys that miss games have talked about their injuries. The guys that didn't miss games have not really spoken about injuries.
Yeah.
Except for Elias Pettersson.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, he's zigging where the rest of them are zagging. It appears at this point.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think he's the easiest guy to coach, Blake. That's one of the things I've picked up in the years that he's been here. And of course, he's been through a number of coaches. I just don't think Elias is the easiest guy to coach. And I think that's going to be an interesting dynamic going forward with Rick Tocchet, who is your landslide winner of the Jack Adams Award as the National Hockey League's top coach. He got 82 of 114 first place votes. Somehow 5 voters left him off the ballot. John Shannon was right. I was wrong. Of the broadcasters who voted on this award, there was a fair bit of home cooking here. I mean, how can you leave Tocchet off the ballot? 26-point improvement.
Yeah. Yeah.
Won the division.
I think in a lot of U.S. markets, they just write the name of their guy.
Yeah. It is the second largest margin of victory, according to Canuck Army, for the Jack Adams Award. Only Gerard Gallant in 2018 with the expansion Vegas Golden Knights had a larger margin of victory. And needless to say, there was consensus on Gerard Gallant that year, much like there was consensus on Rick Tocchet. Allvin, and
they've only started, to be fair, making public the votes
right.
for the last 12 years or so.
Right. Patrick Allvin is joined by Dallas's Jim Nill and Florida's Bill Zito as the finalists for the NHL Executive of the Year. This was last won by a Canuck by Mike Gillis more than a decade ago. I was looking at the work, the addition, and you're telling me that this award is a little bit more than a yearly award, kind of a career achievement or at least era achievement award. Is that?
Well, I think it opens itself up to that. Zito's, this is his third time. Mm-hmm. Is he going to be the Susan Lucci? Do your Google homework on that, folks, if you don't understand the reference.
Daytime Emmy Awards.
Like
La Luch.
35 nominations. Never a win. It became a thing. I think it became a self-fulfilling prophecy.
And then they finally gave it to her,
finally,
right?
eventually.
Or did they give her a carear achievement after she failed to?
I think she eventually won. Anyway, Zito's in that sort of territory, I think. And yet, I think it's hard to ignore the Lindholm and Zadorov trades as just season definers for the Canucks.
What I would argue, and I haven't dug in on this, but I think there's a very good case for Patrick Allvin. If you look at the Jim Nill case, signed Matt Duchene, that proved very wise. Sam Steele and Craig Smith have done well for them on the fourth line. They promoted Logan Stankoven from the minors, and he's done well, and made a nice trade for Chris Tanev.
Well,
it's good work.
The decision to play all their kids, Stankoven, Wyatt Johnson, like they're giving.
But Johnson was an established player last year.
Yeah,
like he wasn't.
Yeah.
In the case of Bill Zito, a lot of dabbling around the edges there that, in fairness, worked. Guys like Anthony Stolarz in goal, Oliver Ekman-Larsson, Stenlund, Mikkola, Lorentz, and then deadline acquisitions, Tarasenko and Oposo. And Oposo not even a every night guy for the Panthers. So very good work, mostly around the fringes of the roster. Allvin's work was a little higher up the pecking order.
More consequential.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Allvin's work was, you mentioned the trade additions, the in-season trade additions, but guys like Suter and Susie, who played elevated roles, right?
Josh, yeah. I mean, I think he's still, and again,
Luger,
this is where the ancestral acquisitions of like Joshua and all that sort of thing, like I think they count too.
Well, I mean, if it's of the year, it should be, what did you do this year?
You developed that player, though. You brought in a raw player and
Okay.
allowed them to develop. I think you get some credit for that.
Yeah, I just think Allvin's got a pretty good case against the other guys, particularly when you consider the season improvement of the Vancouver Canucks. Florida went to the Cup final last year. We're the Eastern Conference champion. Dallas went to the Final Four last year. Same conference final in the West.
Mm-hmm.
So I think Allvin's got a case. Be interested to see how people vote on it. But perhaps more hardware coming for the Vancouver Canucks. Game 7, the rating is in. Our friend and colleague, Adam Seaborn. 3.25 million viewers for the Canucks and Oilers on a Monday night with a 9 p.m. Eastern start. That's pretty darn good, everybody. Boston-Toronto Game 7 got 5.1 million, but that was a Saturday start. That was a Saturday and an 8 p.m. start. So a lot easier for the majority of the Canadian population back east to watch that game than it was to watch Edmonton and Vancouver.
You'd probably get 1.5 million more if it's a Saturday night game, I would guess.
Yeah. So very representative.
Yeah.
People tuned in.
North America was very intrigued by that Game 7. Mm-hmm. I think it did. It garnered a lot of interest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't think it was the most compelling series for a neutral just because it wasn't the most aesthetically pleasing. The Vancouver Canucks had an awful lot of trouble getting shots on goal and, of course, did a really good job, particularly at even strength, on Connor McDavid. So you certainly didn't see McDavid at his best. You didn't see the underdog in the series throwing haymakers by any stretch either. I mean, for the most part, they took what they could get.
But on any given night, you had no idea.
It was a lot of close
win.
games. Yeah, a lot of close games and third period drama as well.
That's right.
If you stayed up late enough because again, as neutrals, are they hanging with you through all 60 minutes?
And because it wasn't an offensive game, every goal, it was like a soccer match. Every goal meant so much. So I think people were on the edge of their seats in a lot of ways, even though we would, if those games were played in November, we would call them, a little bit more low event hockey. I don't think anybody was worried about the event status of the games because it was just so damn close. So that created the entertainment and the drama in and of itself, and how many last minute, flurries, whether they were consequential with a goal or not, like in Game 7, the final few minutes were must-see television. You had to get there, as you said.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Dakota Joshua, Nikita Zadorov,
who said, "I'm just here so I don't get fined," bringing back a time-honored tradition at these things, thanks to Marshawn Lynch.
Did you guys see this quote from him?
About how much he should make?
Yes.
Yeah, read it.
How much do you think I should make? I don't know where you guys get those numbers. The trees? You got to stop listening to the Edmonton reporters.
Honestly, the guy.
He's really on it. Hey, much like last year, Andrei Kuzmenko lit up our experience of following the Vancouver Canucks with his personality, with his humor, with his enthusiasm. Nikita Zadorov did a whole lot of the same this year, and particularly after Kuzmenko was traded in January, right? He's been a whole lot of fun. There are absolutely great cases for bringing Nikita Zadorov back. There are also cases for not paying Nikita Zadorov. On a purely entertainment and pleasure watching and following this team level, boy, I'd love to see him back. He's a big guy who moves pretty well, is willing to try and go get his on the offensive end, is mugging on the ice at all times, getting involved in the chatter, the fashion off the ice, and of course the chirping about the fashion, and then the one-liners like this in his second language, Blake. If they could all be like Nikita Zadorov, how much fun this sport would be.
Well, as I was going to say, you can act like Philip Hronik, or you can act like that. Yeah. And an serious topic, like, are you going to be a Vancouver Canucks next year? Like, are you going to be reasonable? Like, these are career moments that he's being asked about, and he's playing ball and having fun.
It's a child's game. Like, it really should be fun.
Yes.
Like, if you're a pro athlete, you really should walk around life as though you've got the world by the tail. Because here's the thing you do. Getting paid that much money to play a kid's game. So good on Zadorov. Brings me to one of the questions I was bringing up to you. I was going to bring up.
By the way, apparently Garland was shaking his head when Zadorov was speaking.
Oh, I'm sure.
Like,
Can you imagine the kick those guys get out of him? Like, how many conversations in the Canucks room have started with, so I was with Nikita and ... We'll go through a lot of these questions as the offseason unfolds, everybody, but what do you think? Most likely to have played their last game as a Canuck as we hear from some of these particular...
Across the board, you mean?
Well, I'll give you four.
Okay.
The big four. Zadorov, Lindholm, Joshua, Roenick.
I think I'm going to go with the highest odds and the longest odds, and that'll be Lindholm.
Yeah.
I don't think it's impossible. I don't think it's a non-zero chance that he's back, but yeah, I mean that's the hardest one to imagine. But realistically, I mean, I know Zadorov's trying to play it down a little bit here. I think Zadorov's in second place there.
Could be, yeah, could be.
Again, we're talking about UFAs versus Roenick, who's an RFA.
Mm-hmm.
Joshua's not going to cost nearly as much as the other two UFAs, so that becomes a little more probable there. So, you know, it's gonna be tough. I do think but here's a question I'll throw back at you. Are one of Zadorov and Lindholm back for sure in your mind? Would you go to the wall thinking?
Good question.
Would you go to the wall thinking at least one of those guys is back? Because there's a world they go for two.
No, agreed.
Yeah,
I think yes.
I mean, that would seem like a safe bet for me as well, but still,
I'm not sure it's not that safe though, because
no, it's not.
I think Myers is coming back. I think Myers is coming back on a very team-friendly deal. I've been saying it for months. There are specific family reasons why Myers wants to be back here, dealing with the health of a child. And when you get great care for a child, and it's very difficult to move. So I think I think Roenick will be back too. I understand all the trade talk. I get it. I can see not coming to terms on a long-term deal. I think that would be unpalatable for the Vancouver Canucks. But I think as we stand here right now, it is more likely than not that Filip Hronek will be back. So if Hronek and Myers are back, that for the most part solves your right shot defense issue. Now, you know, I do think more work needs to be done there next summer, say.
Yep.
Because, you know, Myers in the 2-hole, Juleson in the 3-hole. Okay, it's good, but not great. I'm not sure that's cup contender level. That makes it more difficult to get your winger, Blake, because you'll be investing in left side defense. You'll be investing in center ice. And we know you're at least one, probably two, if not three wingers short from contention. That was amongst the most clear and evident teachings from the Stanley Cup playoffs. You're not good enough on the flank. You're not getting enough conversion from those wingers.
Which is why I'm almost of the mind that the Canucks just form an identity out of one of those categories. Go into this offseason and say, we're getting three wingers. Our defense is good enough. We can get a good enough defense together, but we're going to make sure that all of our star forwards are supported. We're getting three wingers. And we're really not going to touch the defense too much outside of a Zadorov replacement of some sort.
And we have the projected contracts from AFP Analytics.
Some options there.
Yeah.
Or they go into the offseason and say, we're going to have the best defense in the league. And you know, get one certified right shot alongside Roenick, and then a nice depth right shot as well.
Yeah.
And just say, you know what, we're not touching the wingers. We'll score just enough goals, but nobody's scoring on us with a Vezina Trophy candidate and the best defense core.
Did we mention Zadorov's quote about Calgary and Edmonton?
No. After he'd already taken the shot saying you guys got to stop reading the Edmonton reporters.
He settled all accounts in Alberta.
Yes, he did.
I can compare it to Calgary, but Vancouver has a bigger fan base. I mean, Calgary isn't even the number one team in Alberta.
Scorched earth policy.
So you're telling me
In
he's
oil
not
country.
signing with the Flames or the Oilers
I don't
this offseason,
think
huh, Dan Milstein?
I don't think so.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Rob, hey, Edmonton, Dallas get going in the Western Conference Final on Thursday. Our buddy Rob Williams, and we'll have Rob back on the show next week. Today's a bit of an odd show. As mentioned, we're going to go to the podium for talking Allvin.
They're trying out the entire team, by the way. We wondered about this last night as we were talking off the air, and we were saying, are they going to run just like 4 panels? Nope, they are running out the whole team right now.
So we continue to await Allvin and Tocchet, but Rob Williams, our buddy from the Daily Hive and Offside, he's penned a piece in, forget about Canada's team, and I think he's right about that. This is the guy we're rooting for, and it's Chris Tanev.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, playing for the guy who should have been the Canucks owner as well. I mean, there's a lot of reason why people might be choosing the Dallas Stars, and a lot of people that just don't want to see the Oilers get theirs.
Yeah,
but
I think there's that too.
But I think you might have to come to terms with eventually that's going to happen. Whether it's this year, next year, the year after that, Connor McDavid's going to hoist a Stanley Cup at some point.
Yeah, I think so. People rooting against OEL in Florida?
Nope. I don't think it
just didn't move the meter.
Crosses their mind.
The emotional meter.
I think if they make the Stanley Cup final, people will be like, "Oh yeah, wow, good for him." Like I think they'll take note of it, but it's not going to drive any emotion. I don't think. Out of sight, out of mind. And again, just because he proliferated elsewhere doesn't mean it was the wrong decision.
No, especially with the cost savings and the way they deployed it this year. And of course, they have a fair bit of cost savings on Oliver Ekman-Larsson next season as well. And then you start to get into some bigger. Pain. Incidentally, caught part of first period last night. Then came back to it with about 7 or so minutes to play in the third period. Go, oh boy, still 1-0. The 1 goal's held up here. This could be a fantastic finish. Only to see Lafreniere score like an own goal for the ages.
His goalie didn't help him out. The only reason he makes that play is because his goalie came out to play the puck where he did.
Yeah, well, so Shesterkin comes out to play the puck
to the face-off circle. As
Gary Galley explained on the broadcast, Keandre Miller, for some reason, changes and doesn't give the goalie an outlet. So Shesterkin's only able to play it off the boards and right to a Panther. And for some reason, your stick is on the ice as he's skating back towards his own crease.
He's going hard to the net, looking for the redirect.
Anyway, so
Ian Cole-like.
I was sitting there going, this is going to be fantastic. The Rangers with the goalie out, crowd in Madison Square Garden, the overtime.
Yeah, it's.
Are we going to the podium, Grady? Or
no, not yet. Just testing something.
All right, got you. Yeah. So, anyways, 1-0 for Florida in the Eastern Conference Final. After a game one that was low on goals and sadly drama in the third period. Let's hope for better from the Oilers and the Stars tonight. Port Alberni's Jim Hiller has been named the new head coach of the Los Angeles Kings. Shouldn't say new, should say non-interim head coach. He's the full-time permanent head coach of the LA Kings. Mm-hmm. Are you surprised at that, or he did good enough work in turning around the team?
I'm surprised by that. And I think, without knowing Hiller super well, I mean, my goodness, they better just adore the guy to think that they can't do better on the open market with all the vacancies out there. And maybe that's it. Maybe they're afraid that if they take too much time, everybody else moves into different chairs. I don't think Jim Hiller's a commodity under serious demand, though. If they told Jim that we're going to leave you in the ether here for a second while we look around, I don't think Jim's getting snapped up. So I'm surprised because they're in win now mode. Like, they're running out of time. Doughty and Kopitar are nearly expired.
Yeah. Sheldon Keefe has taken over as the new head coach of the New Jersey Devils, straight from the Toronto Maple Leafs.
And that means that the Leafs don't have to pay him anymore, so they're very happy about it.
Which leaves 3 teams remaining looking for head coaches. The Winnipeg Jets, and Rick Bowness is retiring. David Quinn fired by the San Jose Sharks. And, of course, Dave Haxtell let go by the Seattle Kraken. I bring this up just because the reporting on Jeremy Colleton, the Vancouver Canucks head coach for their AHL Abbotsford club. So the reporting on this is that his contract prevented him from going to an NHL job, which I find a little odd. Like, I've always been led to believe that, you don't stand in the way of promotions for an individual, that it's pretty much par for the course that the agent negotiates in, well, okay, he'll be your AHL coach unless an NHL team wants to offer him the gig, at which point he needs an out.
Did they give him a higher compensation?
Well, it's possible, but so the reporting is apparently they offered him a contract extension, but with the same stipulation. And Colleton has not signed that. And there's also reporting that he has interviewed with the San Jose Sharks, who, needless to say, I think are going to need yet another coach that is going to help players develop at the NHL level.
Which sounds very Colleton-esque.
Very much so. I mean, Macklin Celebrini is going to be there next year. I don't suspect it will take too long. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I don't suspect it will take too long before Macklin is the number one center there, but may not start out that way. And then Seattle down the I-5, which is interesting. That's a big hire for Ron Francis.
Yep.
I know you had a Cinderella run. You had a star-blessed season in year 2. You had a really good run in the second round of the playoffs. Lost in 7 games to Dallas. Got very, very as far as the Canucks did this year.
See, I don't think they should be bringing in a Jeremy Colleton. I think it's time for them to bring in an NHL coach.
The bookends to that middle season for the Kraken have been, you've been bad, you've been boring, you haven't developed much personality or individual connection between players and fans. So that's a big hire, I think, for Ron Francis.
And they should probably bring in an NHL coach that can communicate publicly as well. Because in the absence of a true face of the franchise player, which they don't really have,
and in the absence of a general manager who is out there being the face of the franchise,
and which he does not want to be,
he is not that guy.
You need a Vanni Sartini, for lack of a better,
exactly.
Like
you need a big person. You need a Paul Maurice type guy.
Yeah. So I don't know who that is on the available market, but that would certainly come in handy for the Kraken.
Okay, more coming in from these Vancouver Canucks season-ending pressers. Dakota Joshua says he wants to be back, and needless to say, the Vancouver Canucks, while they got very good returns from Dakota Joshua, especially this year, Dakota Joshua owes the Vancouver Canucks a big thank you for help in his career. I mean, this was the team that was scouting him, on him, thinking there was more than meets the eye there, that this was a late bloomer and an NHL player, even though he was a bit player, a fringe player in St. Louis. Of course, Rick Tocchet challenging him at the beginning of the years, needing more from Dakota Joshua. And Dakota, to his infinite credit, rising to that challenge. He didn't whine. He didn't snivel. He didn't retreat. No, he decided to put in the work. And he turned into a marvelous player. Had an excellent year on the third line. Who knows how far the year could have gone, how he not broken his hand in that honor fight in Chicago protecting Quinn Hughes. Cost him a quarter of the season. And boy, what would his UFA numbers look like if he did play all 82?
And you can't help but wonder, a player like that, he's going to think twice about getting into a fight, especially in the second half of a season.
Yeah, but he's still got to play big. He's still got to play physical. Sure. He's still got to play rambunctious. Now, the interesting part on Dakota Joshua, and you've been talking about this for years or for months, there is a point where you have to walk away and say, no, that's too rich. And in this year's market, because here's the big change this year, folks, because the salary cap's going up by a substantial amount, you are suddenly going to have more teams that are in on free agent bidding. There are less teams that are going to be handcuffed by a lack of cap space, which has already been committed to existing players on re-signed deals. You're going to have more shoppers, and you're going to have shoppers with more money in their pocket.
Look at Utah, Ryan Smith.
Absolutely. Look at Utah.
And he'll want to make a splash.
Right. And in their case, they also have a ton of draft capital to be able to use to get those players in. But just on the free agent bidding side of things, there's a point where the Canucks have to walk away and say no.
Do you sign Joshua to a four-year
look
deal?
At how much upside is really there for a player of this age, and completely understandable. But by the same token, you're already weak at wing, Blake Price.
Yeah.
To say goodbye to somebody who was, well, certainly one of your 6 best wingers. I think you can make a case he was maybe even one of your 4 best wingers, 3 best wingers.
So let me ask you this.
That further weakens a position that's already weak.
Probably won't be able to beat the cap hit of some other teams on the offer to Dakota Joshua. At the age of 28, are you okay giving him term? What if you went with a 5-year deal for Dakota Joshua?
And AFP has him at 4 years, 3.25 projection.
So can you keep him down a little bit? Do you get him at 2.829 over 5 years? Or does that scare you? Because maybe that's a way for you to keep the value down a little bit.
So I'm not wholly against it in principle. He's a penalty killer too, right?
We've seen this in some other teams. That like other teams have got like
Sissons.
6-year deals at 2.75. Like weird contracts are out there.
North Vancouver's Colton Sissons.
Samuelson in Buffalo took a long one with him.
Who on the Islanders? Somebody on the Islanders.
Pierre Engvall.
Pierre Engvall.
Yeah.
Like a contract forever at $3 million. Engvall's good through 30-31 or 29-30 at $3 million. Now, I'm not suggesting that Engvall's younger. But maybe you go 5.
Colton Sissons, 7-year deal at 2.85. No, it was the damnedest thing. When he signed it, we were all like, whoa. You don't see many contracts structured like that.
No.
So to answer your question, I'm not against that in principle or in framework. In fact, there's a part of me that wonders whether that might even be a little more desirable. Oh boy.
Yeah,
okay.
They're punting it. Yeah.
So here's the thing. Patrick Allvin and Rick Tocchet are now being delayed for whatever reason.
They ended the stream
till
over an hour
30.
Yeah.
So we'll catch up with Patrick Allvin and Rick Tocchet tomorrow then.
The other guy we should talk about, I don't think we underlined it enough.
Well, so
so
you would do that 5 years at 2.8 for Dakota?
Yeah, I would think
I would look at it.
Yeah. Tyler Myers also, we should underline this, declared. I mean, I almost think he tipped his hand too much here and gushed a little bit too much about wanting to come back.
Yeah.
We knew that was going to be the case, but for Canucks fans that want to see him back on a cheaper deal, I think there's a really good chance of that.
Yeah. As mentioned, Tyler and his wife have a child who has certain medical needs. They outlined this, a big feature story they did years ago on the birth of the child and how difficult that was and how worried they were. And apparently the medical care here in British Columbia is absolutely fantastic. And, both Tyler and his better half just love it here and love the care that they get. So I think you're going to see Tyler Myers sign here on a team-friendly deal.
Which is going to be helpful.
And I think both sides have known that for some time.
Mm-hmm. I hope the number's shockingly good for the Canucks' sake.
2 years, 3.1.
Well, it may well be. I was just going to say, like, it may well be what you just sort of outlined for Dakota Joshua, that it might be a little longer on term than you would expect for a player of this age to effectively keep the AAV down and serve as a bridge point whereby the agent and the player can go, okay, we're willing to take that because of the specific circumstances.
I'm okay with 2. The question is, do they go for 3 to really get that number down?
Mm-hmm.
We'll see.
Yes. You were going to ask me about, you asked me about Myers already.
Yeah.
Okay. In a moment here, we're going to hear from a couple of the particulars. We're just letting J-Pat get some of the clips ready down there at Rogers Arena.
Did we discuss Lindholm's answer about
no
re-signing in Vancouver?
No, we did not.
Yeah, he took I'm going to think about it with my agent. Haven't really thought about it, blah, blah, blah.
So there are rumors that Lindholm and Boston have eyes for each other.
Now, there was an interesting joke right before he answered. Demko jumped in.
Yeah.
And said, be specific, which brought down the house apparently inside the room. But it's almost, it was a joke, but it almost hinted at he's had a lot of conversations with the teammates maybe about what's happening. And they were sort of trying to pry it out of him and make him spill the beans. So the teammates might know a little bit more about his intentions than anybody else at this point. And I think it was a good way of showing that the teammates do want him back, that he was well liked.
And he was excellent for them in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. And you are more than Stanley Cup worthy if you have Miller, Lindholm, and Pettersson down the middle, all of them playing on their game.
Completely.
But it's almost like too much riches there because you're robbing from the wing or you're robbing from somewhere on defense, I think, if you pay all three of those players. The other thing, let's not forget this, everybody, that he looked as good as he did in the playoffs. And again, coming off an injury that really slowed him down in the regular season.
Took him out of the lineup.
And had him returning later in the year, and he looked pretty good really instantly upon return. That's going to attract other teams as well, right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't think there's a hope in hell that he is signing for a penny less in Vancouver.
The funny
That's a top 2 right shot, penalty killing, all situations centerman. They do not grow on trees. That guy's going to get paid.
The unfortunate part is, I think, is fans look at him and look at his dollar figure for this year and think, oh, he'll get a nice raise. But the thing is, he was vastly underpaid. So you can't just say, oh, add $2 million to what he made, and that's definitely what he'll make. I think that's very conceivable that he gets a bigger raise than that, because he was a value contract when he came here at under $5 million. So it could be a scary race for Lindholm, and the Canucks just can't get into competition with scary raises on a player like that.
No, I think you're right.
As good as he is.
I think you're right. And
you can't chase stupid. You can't chase the stupid GM who wants to back up the Brinks truck.
And Blake.
And that goes for all of them.
5 years, 6.7 projection.
5 years, 6.7 on Lindholm.
And I said I will do
I
that.
would be stunned if he doesn't get more than that.
Yeah, I would do that in a New York Minute.
Absolutely.
But I think he does better than that.
I think he could be an $8 million player.
Woo.
With an extra year. I think he gets 6 too. Yeah.
Well, Grady,
I'm avoiding that.
Okay, great. Yeah, so Grady, talk to me. Who are the UFA centermen out there this year?
Yeah, I haven't done the full deep dive. Been looking more at defensively.
Right.
How long ago was Louis Eriksson, who got 6 by 6?
Oh my God. You have to bring that up.
And that was we're getting close to it to 7-8 years ago. Yeah. And Louis Eriksson was getting that.
If you consider Stamkos a centerman, he would be there.
Yeah, I don't know if he's
Adam Henrique. No.
There's not a lot of competition there.
No, I'm just looking down the UFA centerman. He's
so all the more
one
reason,
of the better ones, if not the best.
All the more reason for
Duchesne
to cash in.
Duchesne's ancient.
Duchesne had an excellent year, but yes, he is old. Mm-hmm. If you consider Domi a center, but I don't really consider him a center, and he's not of this ilk.
No.
Can play the middle. You got some RFAs that may shake free, but yeah, no, if you're on the market for a UFA centerman, you're on the market for Elias Lindholm. I think that much is clear. Okay, let's get into, and sadly, no talking to Allvin today. We'll get into them tomorrow.
We do have audio now. We have Zadorov and Demko.
All right, well, let's hear from Big Nikita. Let's hear from Nikita on his time here.
Obviously, getting traded to one of the top teams in the league, and just to get a chance to play with these guys, I mean, it was unbelievable. 5-6 months for me. You know, I had fun every day. You know, it's awesome when you can do what you love, and then you also come to the rink and you enjoy the group of the guys in here. You know, like past month, it's been so much enjoyment and fun, and just a great hockey and great time spending together on the road and at home, you know. So it's been, I mean, I'm proud of the guys. I'm proud of our team, where we achieved through the whole year and where we are right now. Obviously, we feel like, well, in this room, feel like we fell a little bit short at the end of the day. But it's been unbelievable experience in here. Nothing to complain about ever.
Yeah, really nicely said. Really nice. He can joke it up, but that's just a really nice answer.
Yeah. Well, and not his first nice answer. Earlier this year, Grady, help me out. What was the game? He committed a penalty, and he just
Lucas Raymond hit.
Right. The
Yeah.
Lucas Raymond hit against Detroit.
Yeah. He said he was too high and
Yeah.
basically deserved this. What was a 1-game suspension?
Yeah. Where he just owned it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Like, it is so rare to hear a hockey player speak with the sort of honesty, accountability, and honor that Nikita Zadorov has spoken with all season long.
And sometimes the jokester and the prankster in the room can get pretty annoying if he doesn't know the boundaries, but they particularly hate it when that jokester or prankster isn't accountable for his own shit. Nikita Zadorov is the jokester and maybe at times can grade a teammate, but if he's going to be accountable, really tough to be upset with the guy when he's also a pretty good pro and recognizes his own faults. So
it was a 2-game suspension, and he was like, yeah, deserved.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, going not too far back, and I stand to be corrected here, but has any other Russian player come out against Putin in the invasion of Ukraine? The national
there's maybe been some that have been fairly neutral on the subject, but nobody's been actually against like he has.
Panarin not going back there or something. He was.
Yeah,
there's a bunch of them that aren't going back. Did he
some
say something?
Interviews where he may have spoken. I don't want to misspeak
yeah.
here,
No, you're right. I think there might have been a second player who did that. Yep. Artur Shilovs at the podium said he would enjoy the opportunity to be the second guy next year. So thinks there's a lot that he can learn from Thatcher Demko, and I suspect he will. I suspect that job is now his. Stay healthy all summer, kid, and you're going to be the backup goaltender.
I think there'll be a Louis Domingue like character, for comparison's sake, that's brought in. Maybe not quite DeSmith level.
You need what? You need that. You need a third organizational goalie. I'm not sure Nikita Tolopila is quite ready to be the third organizational goalie, but if you get an injury, this guy's going to have to come up and he's going to have to play NHL backup duty.
Yeah.
Which means you're going to need him to play once every couple weeks. We haven't heard from Demko much. Even at the best of times, you don't hear a lot from Thatcher Demko. Doesn't do a lot of public speaking. Spoke today, as you mentioned, he had a good one-liner there with one of his teammates. Here's Demko on missing the postseason, or at least all but one game.
Probably, the hardest thing I've had to go through as a player. To play, obviously we've been through some tough years here, and finally get the opportunity, and it's always tough watching. So, it was really hard, but I was really close to coming back, and I was looking to probably be available for the next series had we gotten to that point.
Yeah, I mean, it's he was that close to being a real hero, because if they can somehow and not illegitimately, it would have been a steal. I've said this a number of times. They would have stolen that series from the Oilers. I really believe that. But that happens in sport. The minute you steal that series from the Oilers, you get to face Dallas, and we've been sort of writing them off. If they get Thatcher Demko back, and again, this isn't a knock on Shilovs. This is a Vezina Trophy caliber goal. Like, your goalie's allowed to steal you games. That's why goalies can be so valuable. A red hot goalie, the best goalie on the planet, he's allowed to steal you games. He's allowed to be the best player on the ice. You never know. You never know with Thatcher Demko versus the Stars.
Let's hear. We mentioned Brock Besser earlier, but we have the audio here from Jeff. Let's hear from Brock Besser on his injury and his timeline.
One sec. My mouse has frozen on.
Okay. All right.
Frozen mice.
And we're going to hear from Jeff tomorrow, and we're going to be joined by PJ tomorrow as well. Not to mention with audio from Patrick Allvin and Rick Tocchet, who have been delayed. If you're just joining us, Tocchet and Allvin were supposed to go after the player availabilities. They've now been pushed back till later this afternoon. So we'll hear from those two on tomorrow's program.
We can hear from Brock now.
And we'll hear from Brock here.
Yeah, so I'll just explain the whole scenario to get it over with. Took a shot game 1 on the power play, had a bruise there. My leg was feeling fine, and then about a week later, my calf started really hurting. So we got it checked out, and I had some, I think a clot in one of my small veins, which wasn't an issue, so I was allowed to continue to play. And then we got another scan after game 5 and 6. I got a scan the next morning after game 6 and showed that there was more clotting that moved into my deep vein. And I think I wasn't expecting that going into that. I didn't really understand, I think, so it was like an emotional morning for me. And, to, get told that news after, you're giving all your energy with your teammates into these playoffs and really striving and pushing for, the ultimate goal, to get that kind of swept out from under you, not to be out there in game 7 with these guys that hurt. And, that was pretty much the whole scenario.
So he gets that news, and he scored a bunch of goals after that point.
That is,
he shook that off pretty darn well, only to have it haunt him and come back. So credit to him.
Yeah. And
a lot of character in that guy.
No, for sure. As we have long talked about, I'm not sure there's a more sympathetic character with the Vancouver Canucks. I'm not sure there's a guy that people who even have just a loose fandom, a loose association with the club, root for more than Brock Besser.
Mm-hmm.
He has the longest tenured Canuck. He was the first light of hope. You may remember during what was a pretty dark period for the Vancouver Canucks. We'll never forget that opening game in Minnesota with his parents reading the lineup and him scoring a goal. And that short stint we got at the end of that first rookie season where he thought, this guy's pretty good. Then that next year where he was just sensational until the back injury late in the campaign. And he has been a thorough class act.
Hey,
we were in front of the cameras and microphones.
We were charmed by him at the draft, bumped into his family at the restaurant after the draft, and him and his family there. And I remember I was walking away going, wow, they are a charming group.
That is quite a charming fest. So Blake and I cover the draft in Florida where he gets drafted. Craig Button comes immediately. Hey, Grady. Thanks.
Sorry.
Craig Button makes a beeline for our broadcast location after they pop him. What was it, 23rd overall?
Mm-hmm.
And Craig said to us, turn off the mic, take your headsets off. Great pick. Fantastic pick. One of my favorite picks of this draft. He's going to be a hell of a player. Wow.
At 23rd, we thought, okay, well, great.
And then Brock comes over. He does the interview. And, like a lot of kids, he was terrific because that's the best moment of their life. This stage, right? Like every single
fresh off the cover. Team beat too, by the way. So we were like, wow. Usually they don't look like this.
We're like, wow, look at the flow. He looks like a young Robert Redford. And it just so happened that night we were one table over from the Besser family at dinner in a Fort Lauderdale eatery.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're sort of looking over and go over and introduce ourselves. Can you remember how enthusiastic his brother was?
Mm-hmm.
His brother was over the moon. Like, Brock's a pretty low-key guy. There were people at that table who were
more type A than he is.
Yeah, exactly. Euphoric.
Yeah.
Good to know that Brock is going to be okay here from just a human being point of view.
Yes.
And that he, secondly, on a hockey point of view, is going to be able to maintain his off-season training and come back after a big summer. You think Tocchet's going to drop big summer here later today? I have a feeling you may hear about big summers.
Probably.
Although, I think a lot of guys, he probably feels like now they know what summer's about. Last year I had to tell them, here's what I need you to do this summer because we've got to be a lot better this next season. And it starts with you guys and your fitness and your readiness. I would suspect he feels like a lot of those guys now know the score when it comes to what to do in the offseason. Okay, let's get to your playoff parlay challenge. This is at Daily Faceoff, everybody. Games.dailyfaceoff.com. Every game day, you can go on there. They will ask you a bunch of questions about that night's game, over, under, goal scorers, things like that. You make your selections. The winner of each night gets a gift card. The winner of each round gets cash. So now that we've started, round 3, we're riding our pony, Blake Price, to bring home all the moolah.
Only got 3 right last night. Yeah.
3 dates.
Yeah.
Okay, it's still early.
Going
Plenty of time to catch up.
I'm going chalky.
He's a good closer. He's not great out of the gate, but so long as he's stalking, he'll close come the quarter pole.
Pretty chalky stuff here. I'm going with the Stars on the money line. Over under was 6.5, so I'm taking the under there.
Yes, no hints. So
first goal going Dallas, home side, more rested. They'll be fine. High scoring period, the first. I think they take advantage with a couple maybe. Heiskanen assists. Yeah, taking the over. That's just 1 for me. Assist for Connor McDavid. Given the Canucks did such a good job on Connor McDavid, I think the Stars will too. The over-under for assists for him is 1.5, so he might get 1, but I'm not giving him more than that.
Oh, wow. 1.5 is a gift.
Yeah. Zach Hyman goal.
I mean, at a half, you have to go over, right?
Right.
But at 1.5, you can go under.
Yeah.
All right.
Zach Hyman total goals going under there. He's going to be held off the board tonight. Wyatt Johnson, giving him 1 goal to hit the over, and tiebreaker, 51 shots in the game.
Mm-hmm. That's your playoff parlay challenge with Daily Faceoff. Menu today brought to you by our friends at Greta, 50 West Cordova. Fantastic place to go pregame, postgame. Of course, we do have games still here in Vancouver, just not of the hockey variety. Plus, one of the great arcades in the city. Absolutely fantastic. The air hockey is sensational. It's air hockey unlike you've never seen. That Jurassic Park game. Did you see how popular that Jurassic Park game was?
I have not. I'll go check it out.
It was huge. Go see him, 50 West Cordova at gretabar.com. Sara Civian's going to join us. NHL reporter. She's worked out of Carolina. She's worked out of Boston. Works for Bleacher Report Elite Prospects, the Too Many Men podcast. And she was mentored by Jason Botchford when they were both at The Athletic. And she wrote sort of an ode to Canucks fans, ode to Canucks Twitter, ode to the conversation around the Vancouver Canucks recently, yesterday for Bleacher Report. We read it. We were touched by it. We thought, boy, she hits a lot of the right notes for someone who doesn't live and work here. And there's some parts in that story about Jason and some of the last things that he penned that Sara tied to this current season of the Canucks and this current postseason run. So fantastic conversation. That's coming on up. Let's get to Bet365 and our bets of the day, Blake. The segment brought to you by Bet365, proud partner of Sekeres and Price.
I hit my Sam Bennett shot prop,
Did you?
by the way. He had 5 shots on goal last night.
Mm-hmm. I did not hit Chris Kreider because they did not score a goal.
It's true.
Correct series score. I'm looking at that for Dallas Edmonton. I mentioned I like Dallas in this series. I maybe would have gone 5 games, but Hint's missing this one. They say he's likely to be ready for game 2, but I'm now amending. I'm going to go Dallas in 6, and that pays $500. You got to get the correct game number here, but plus 500 on the money line, Stars in 6.
I'm going to pick the final score in today's game.
Ah,
You know, massive odds, so you don't have to put much on
no,
it.
exactly. 3-2, 4-3,
3-1
3-1
plus 1,800.
That's for. Oh, that either way, you get Dallas or Edmonton at 3-1.
Sorry, you're right. Thank you for
Thank
clarifying. That was actually the wrong team. It goes down to plus 1,600. I'm expecting Dallas to win 3-1
Okay.
plus 1,600. There you go.
Good that we
Still really good odds.
open an account with Bet365 today and bet on a huge range of markets. So whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Use code VANBONUS. Sara Civian coming up next.
In a season like this, you never want to miss a single second of what's happening on the ice, and you want to be around your fellow fans, right? Well, Greta Bar YVR at 50 West Cordova, the perfect spot to do so. Hey, if you've got tickets, a great place to pre and post. They've got drink specials every single day. And if you don't have tickets, well, stick around and soak up the atmosphere with all your fellow fans, play all the great video games and air hockey, great air hockey setup as well at Greta Bar YVR. We'll see you there, 50 West Cordova. The Vancouver Canadians are back at the net. Catch fireworks, giveaways, and Friday nooners all spring and summer long. Get your tickets at CanadiansBaseball.com. Hey, you. No, not you. You. Are you an owner-operator? You have a fleet of trucks or cars? Well, CalPro Plus might be the dedicated tire program just for you.
Free program includes exclusive deals and savings, price match guarantee, flexible financing, and preferred pricing on everything you drive.
Also, you get a dedicated member support line. That means that you can get questions answered. Also, they'll source and recommend the right tire for you, your application, and your budget.
Cal Tire's network of 260 plus stores are here to help so you can focus on the road ahead. Sign up for free at calproplus.com. Northlands Golf Course. Download the free app and book tee times with a touch of your thumb. And while you're on course, open the app for hole-by-hole GPS and track your score. 6 to 90-day reservations. Jump the queue. Lock in your date for $10 per player booking fee. Limited daily availability. Check it all out. golfnorthlands.com. Everybody knows about the overdose crisis, also known as the toxic drug crisis.
But what's less known is that the stigma around addiction makes it harder to ask for help.
And that's got to stop. Addiction is a complex health condition, not a choice.
Right, and that means people shouldn't have to face judgment at work or from their loved ones or fear the law.
But shame or stigma can cause a person to hide their drug use or use alone.
And we don't want that. People shouldn't be afraid to reach out.
There are supports available, and it helps to know where to start.
The government of BC is partnering with organizations like Sekeres and Price to help extend this message throughout our province.
If you or someone you know is struggling, you can find supports and services near you at helpstartshere.gov.bc.ca. You can also watch powerful real-life stories of recovery on the Help Starts Here website. Palmer designed Whistler Golf Club, now open for the 2024 season and playing to rave early season reviews. Tee times for any time during 2024 can be booked online now. And if you have a group of 12 or more, you, the group organizer, plays for free. For more information to book online, visit whistlergolf.com. Sara Civian covers the National Hockey League for Bleacher Report Elite Prospects and is part of the Too Many Men podcast. She has written on the Vancouver Canucks headline, "It's Going the Other Way, an ode to the Canucks and a tribute to a mentor." And of course, that mentor is Jason Botchford. She joins us now from her home in Boston. Hi, Sarah. Thanks for the time.
Hi, guys. Of course. Thanks for having me.
What inspired you to write this?
Just the nature of how the Canucks were winning games all season and how they stayed in the fight despite, you lose your number one goalie, you lose your number one goal scorer in such a awful way. It's just the way they kept fighting till the end. And it hasn't gone the other way yet, but you're seeing glimpses of a bright future. And there's nothing to be ashamed about this playoff run, if you ask me. And it all reminded me of the way Botchford would talk about this team.
Yeah, it's going the other way. Explain that for those who missed the piece.
Yeah, one of his last botchies ever, he had the ending that said, there's a certain way Vancouver Canucks hockey always goes, but he can't wait for it to go the other way. And I think that is such a good representation of just the Canucks fan base, right? And the Canucks experience. It's like you expect them to disappoint you, and they do. But going the other way to me would mean you kind of have expectations and you start to believe.
The Canuck Twitter reputation is...
We should also explain. Botchford wrote that at the end of Elias Pettersson's rookie season.
Yes.
And of course, Elias shuttered him out from the Calder Trophy.
And there was promise and all that
exactly.
sort of stuff. Canucks Twitter has a reputation. Canuck fans have a reputation based on, some well-earned milestones, if you will, or incidents throughout the course of history. Yet, I as I follow you on Twitter, you and some others, it's a smaller group, do think there's something adorable about the fan base to some degree. Explain what your overriding sentiment about the love of this team.
Well, I think how they act sometimes is valid. I think the team gives them a reason to do that, as opposed to Canadians fans. I don't know. They're just so serious and mad about everything. I think Canucks fans are funny and mad. And sometimes they will take it out on a punching bag, but to me, it's punching bag of the day. I think they have not a short memory, but there's always something to be enthusiastic about. The memes are A1. They don't take themselves too seriously, but they take the team extremely seriously. And I think they just want the media to do so as well. And it's like the dynamics with hockey in Canada are, you got Toronto, you got Montreal, and then I think Canucks fans just want to be respected and they want their passion to be recognized. And I like the brand of passion they have. It's more like NBA Twitter to me, where you have to be witty to survive.
Lead the league in memes here.
Yeah. The memes for 60.
Yeah, right.
Clint Eastwood in Unforgiven said deserves got nothing to do with it, but do the Canucks deserve a Stanley Cup? Like, do they deserve, after everything that they've been through in all of their history, do they deserve something better than what they've had?
Yeah, absolutely. I think this season really showed that with the players. We all wondered if they're going to reach their ceilings, what their ceilings even are, and if they were going to underperform for their whole careers, right? Like you look at Besser, everybody around the league. I mean, Minnesota boy, the Minnesota fans want him to succeed too. Everybody wants to, and then he does. He has this season. Hopefully everything's good for him and he returns perfectly. But you saw some career years and some elevation out of these players that were always supposed to be this core. And I think you start talking about deserving a cup, and especially if Demko comes back healthy, it's like this team from top to bottom is really good. There's a few tweaks you got to make with the lines. There's a few upgrades to be had, but they have the vibes with Zadorov now. They have elite players playing elitely for the most part. And when it's all coming together, it does look like a team that, and a fan base that deserves this.
Well, let's ask you our poll question. Do you expect improvement next year, Sarah?
I do. I think there was a certain belief. I think you got Jack Adams winner coach for a reason, right? I think he really helped some of these players believe in them. I mean, that's lame, but it's kind of true. I think there's a level of that where they've played to a certain standard that hasn't been their ceiling in the past. And now that they've done it, you kind of feel like the training wheels are off.
We mentioned you're from Boston, and we
That's
joked
true.
off air. We joked off air here. You might be the one Boston writer or person who has this affection for
Pathos,
our team.
whatever
out here.
it is,
Yeah.
yes.
Tell us, how did you develop this connection with the club and their fans?
I mean, it all starts with Jason Botchford. He took me and everybody else under his wing, right? Like that's what he did for younger reporters. And I worked at The Athletic at the time, covering the Carolina Hurricanes. I think he saw what other mentors might call flaws as strengths in me. And the way he wrote was something I mean, anybody would aspire to, right? It's like, how did he do that every single day? But it comes down to a passion and an understanding of a fan base. And you realize like he was the pulse of that team and he cared about the fans. I think that's something I started caring about the fans too, because you just see it through his writing. And then for whatever reason, I've always gotten along with people from around Vancouver. Like when I was in Carolina, I have a really great relationship with Rod Brindamore still. I think his lifestyle and things he's taught me they kind of remind me of the mentorship with Botchford too, like just a caring about a fan base that's maybe misunderstood. And then my best friend here is from Vancouver. Like, I don't know how this keeps happening, but some of the Bruins stuff is just no fun. Like everyone's always complaining no matter what's going on. I appreciate a little more of a tortured yearning.
Yeah.
Well, you got a little bit of that, like a mini tortured yearning in Carolina, not in, you know, they've been good, but they haven't been great yet, or at least in the playoffs. This is only 1 year to the second round and out for the Vancouver Canucks. But, you know, as you learned in Carolina, following that team, covering that team, you know, like it's not linear. Like you just because you went to the second round 1 year, you don't get to the third round the next. That's not the way it works, right?
It's not linear. A lot of it is based on matchups. And there's just the fact that there's so many elite teams in the playoffs. Like that's Captain Obvious, but the parity in this league is pretty insane lately. You just look at even the Rangers Carolina series. It was decided by power play goals. Like you need elite players executing or you're just not going to move on.
You tell a story in the piece about when you were in Vancouver and you visited Botchford's bench, and then you had a decision to make about, you know, how much you were going to put that forward publicly, and decided to walk into the rink and had an experience there at Rogers Arena. Tell us about that.
Yeah. Just the way the Canucks fan base will eat you alive. They will also embrace you if like they think you're not a fraud, I think. And I just decided, okay, Botchford, he hated any level of self-importance, right? Even though at times he was criticized for maybe becoming part of the story because he was just so immersed in the entire vibe. But I decided ultimately, like I'd seen some of the tributes. I am friends with Wyatt and I wanted to kind of thank him for it anyway. So why not just put it out there and be like, I know you guys might not know some random girl from Carolina, and from Boston, like random, but I am here and this guy meant a lot to me. And the reception of that was just, it made me realize that the extent to which Botchford really was an extension of the team and the vibes going on, because they just came with a quickness and a passion and an understanding and some open arms that really helped like the community aspect of a grieving process like that.
You mentioned Wyatt. Are you talking about wrestling promoter?
Yeah.
Wyatt Arndt? Is it?
The one and only.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Uh-oh. Is his music starting crazy?
Exactly.
Under the
My
ring
God.
with a chair again? Sarah, I love this line. I'm not going to read it in full, but I'm going to pick from a few paragraphs here. The 2023-24 Canucks were chaotic, dramatic, and fun. They were Botchfords. They gave us something interesting, something real, something that reminds us of our old friend Botchford. And then you went on to say there was just a genuine belief that it might be going the other way. And this was picking up from Jason's last Botchies, as you mentioned, where best ending was the subhead. And that last line is drawn from his pen and what he wrote the last time around. So a terrific link there between the two. What made you think of that?
Just the way I still think about all of his writing and the way it was so unique and so spot on. Like he called that this is how it would happen. And now it's happening. You don't want to be too dramatic because no, they like only got to the second round. There are real valid questions that he would have drilled into them. You know what I mean? But there was also just this sense that what he was talking about is coming true, that it was less anger and more hope. And sometimes hope brings a little more sadness or disappointment, and more questions, as it should. But you're starting to actually ask these questions with a purpose.
He loved the chaos, though. The word chaos is key to that. Yes. And like on the ice, off the ice, chaos is part of being a sports fan and ultimately a media member as well. But covering chaos is fun, isn't it?
Yeah, and the way he would embrace it and not get overwhelmed, but like lean into everything.
Yes.
It's just so you're never going to see that again.
Yeah. No, I've never seen anyone more comfortable in chaos than Jason.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
What did you make of the Oilers series?
Oh, just they're all leading the league in points in the playoffs. Like it just is extremely Oilers, and when the Besser news hit, it's like, yeah, of course you want to win it for Besser and Demko, but it's just impossible. You have your leading goal scorer who was the entire, like emblematic of the entire vibe of the team. You have, it wasn't any goaltending issue that did them in, but it was just the elite firepower from the Oilers and the just running out of, you can't win a game in a third period without your top goal scorer and without firing on every cylinder. Like you're bound to not have that work one time.
Do they win with Thatcher Demko in the playoffs in that series?
I want to say yes, just because Demko is so good, but at the same time, like the goaltending situation should be proud of how it held its own without him. You know, like I think Silvos had 2 of the top expected goal starts of the entire playoffs. Like who would have saw that coming? And then this is what you talk about when you tweak and you build into the next season, right? Like he's probably going to be the backup now, and that gives you even more stability in net. And you can't figure out these things without going through some of the disappointment of returning to the playoffs. So that's a plus, but I don't think you get past them with Demko too, just because of the nature of you need to score more goals.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, we've kicked that around over the last couple of days. Do the goals from distance go in on Demko? Probably not, but does he make all the saves that Shelovs does wind up making? And as you mentioned, a couple of the outstanding goaltending performances of the postseason. Dallas, Edmonton, who do you like?
Dallas. I had them winning the cup from day one, but I keep betting against the Oilers and being wrong. So it's like if they actually surpass, then I have a lot of explaining to do. But
right.
I think that Dallas is too systematic with the Oilers' goaltending situation. Like, they can grind them down. They can take Ottinger has been really good. If he rises to the occasion against the Oilers, that might be a signature series for him.
Yeah, well, Edmonton, better team than Vancouver, but they don't have better fans and they don't have better Twitter. That much is
they're
clear.
miserable in a bad way.
Sarah, it was a beautiful piece. Very well done. Thank you for that. And thank you for your time here today. Terrific conversation.
Thanks, Sarah.
Anytime. Thanks so much, guys.
Welcome back, everybody. And we've had some breaking news here as we have found out that the Vancouver Canucks head coach and general manager will now move their press conference back up to 1 o'clock from 1:30. So now we've got the ability to let that roll out live right here on this channel. So you don't have to move and find it anywhere else. We'll then come back tomorrow and break it all down for you on tomorrow's edition of the show. So just keep it right here. And in a matter of minutes, we'll throw it to Rogers Arena.
What do you anticipate we'll hear from?
When or what?
No, what?
I think they're going to have to be ready, unlike Philip Roenick, to talk about the injuries on this team and how big of a factor that was. Always a factor for every team. They're not excuses. And I think maybe we have to get away from that here in calling injuries excuses. They are reasons. Like, there has to be a quote unquote drop reasonable, folks. There is a point in which an injury can be played through, and there's a point in which you need to sit.
Yeah.
And we saw that with injuries to guys like Thatcher Demko and others. Why didn't it reach that point earlier in the season, maybe for Elias Pettersson and Philip Roenick?
Well, and the other interesting dynamic here is if Allvin and Tocchet do come out and detail some of these injuries, then it's going to further be Elias Pettersson on an island talking about his own injury with everybody else letting the coach and the GM.
Will it be weird if the coach and GM tell Roenick down the river and reveal an injury to Philip Roenick? Like, is that considered betrayal if he says no, there's nothing, and then they say yes, there's X?
I don't know. You wonder whether something said by any of the players is responsible for this pushing Tocchet and Allvin back to 1:30 and then moving them up to 1.
And I'm not blasting Dan Murphy in any way, good friend of mine. But he called it a fib. He called what Roenick said a fib, which is wrong for Dan. So I don't know that the club likes to have that hanging out there in the ether. That, there's a report of a bald-faced lie from one of the players. I think it kind of needs to be addressed in some way, shape, or form here.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing I'm wondering is whether they needed some time to reconcile and get their talking points together for what they're going to say on Pettersson's injury.
There's that too.
You have the coach on records May 8th going out of his way, saying, no, I've heard all the speculation in the market that he's hurt. He's not hurt. It's just illness.
In the case of Roenick, can you get away with it if you're the coach or GM and say, listen, guys, he's a prideful player. He doesn't want to have an excuse. So he doesn't want to say that there's an injury, but we can tell you that he's banged up.
For sure.
I don't think that's classless on their behalf.
No.
To just say, hey, it's just pride. He doesn't want to give excuses, but we don't see it as an excuse. He was considerably injured. I mean, they know the player better than we do in terms of whether or not the player will get ticked off at that, but I'd be tempted to say that if I was one of them.
Well, and you do have to manage the relationship here.
You do. Especially there.
We don't know what they're thinking with regards to whether this is one and done or one in a few games and done for Philip Roenick. Whether they are absolutely intent on bringing him back on a long-term deal. As we have talked about with Roenick, he is arbitration eligible. If he files, he is going to get a considerable number. Maybe it's not $8 million, but I suspect it'll be close. And then he's on a 1-year deal that walks him to unrestricted free agency, which is a scary scenario for Canucks. You gave up first and second round picks to acquire this player. So you've got a big investment in him. He was a massive reason why you're turning it around this year. He was sensational in the first part of the year. And if you're not bringing him back, then you need someone, as we discussed at length on yesterday's program, you need somebody who's an equivalency there. A top pair, right shot, all situations defenseman, and they don't grow on trees. So, yeah, I'm quite interested to hear what Allvin in particular has to say about the path forward with Roenick. I'm quite interested to hear what Rick Tocchet has to say on the injury that Elias Pettersson detailed, given his comments on May 8th. Well, frankly, I'm interested to hear what Rick Tocchet says, period, because I just think he's a great communicator, and I always learn something when he's at the podium talking hockey. Couple of things to clean up from our opening segment. Well, first of all, what a fantastic story and idea from Sara Civian. And thank you to her for coming on and detailing why she chose to write that about the Canucks, well, mostly Canucks fans, and in the vein of Jason's passing. And of course, we lost Jason 5 years ago. Errors and omissions, when we were talking about potential centermen on the UFA market, I'm not sure Chandler Stevenson is high enough up the pecking order of Elias Lindholm, but he's a darn good player, and he's an unrestricted free agent as well. As a matter of fact, Frank Saravelli has just dropped his top 75 free agents on the Daily Faceoff. And as we discussed, Blake, if you consider Stamkos a centerman, he's there. Elias Lindholm, Chandler Stevenson. Those are, maybe Matt Duchene. Those are your top two center. I don't think Monahan's a top two centerman anymore.
No.
Again, Adam Henrique maybe on a bad team, but so it's a market scarcity matter when we're looking at centerman, which makes me think, as much as Elias Lindholm may have cost himself money this year, that he wasn't a huge producer point wise compared to what he has been in previous years, I still think he's going to get paid. I still think there's going to be a lot of teams lining up to get him. Right shot defenseman, again, if you're moving on from Roenick, where are you moving on to? Brandon Montour. Grady, you've brought up Matt Roy out of LA. And he's UFA. Walker and Pesci. And then you're into guys like our old friend Jalen Chatfield, who was going to get paid, incidentally.
Yeah.
He's had some pretty good years in
Carolina.
Carolina.
Had great stats in the playoffs, too.
Yeah, and then guys like Tanev, Carrier, Myers. So, yeah, if you're moving on from Roenick, you're moving on without a lot of UFAs in that stratosphere, in that profile. And if you're cutting bait with Elias Lindholm, understand it's because he is going to be in pretty good demand, and I think is probably going to be able to get paid more than what the Vancouver Canucks can afford.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's not a bumper crop in any one category, and yet there's going to be more money than there's been in a long time to flood the market. So, again, I think you have to earmark the guys that you just can't live without for next season, pay them, and then go along the margins and hopefully you can make some inroads along the margins, which is what they did this year. They especially in the first half, like guys like Bluger were fantastic in the first half of the season. Lafferty too, to get double-digit goals. I mean, very impressive. They're going to have to just reset and do the same thing all over again.
So on this top 75 daily faceoff pending unrestricted free agents, Elias Lindholm is the top-ranked Vancouver Canuck at number 7. A projection there, and again from AFP Analytics, a projection there that Lindholm will be in the 5 by 6.75 range. And again, I think that's probably a little low. Next up, Nikita Zadorov at number 12 on Frank's list. The projection there, $5.53 million per. And again, that could be low based on what people saw in the playoffs. Dakota Joshua is number 27, 4 by 3.25. Teddy Bluger is Tyler Myers next at 31, 2 by 3.1. Teddy Bluger is on this list as well. Projection there that he's 2.2 at 2.1. He made $1.9 million this year.
So not a
with the
huge raise
Canucks.
there. Yeah.
Ian Cole is on the list, down at 58, projecting a $2.1 million 1-year deal for Ian Cole. And then Casey Smith all the way down at 73, projected as a $1.65 million one-way deal. So there's a lot of Vancouver Canucks unrestricted free agents here that I think are going to get some interest throughout the league. I suspect that Allvin is going to be asked about these guys, not to mention Philip Hronek. Archer She Loves is also an RFA, but he is not a restricted free agent that has arbitration rights. So it's usually a pretty easy re-signing with those players. You qualify them, make them the qualifying offer with the raise more often than not. That gets the deal done. So I suspect you'll see She Loves done in pretty short order, quite easily.
Mm-hmm.
Hronek is going to be a different matter. And then the UFAs, and particularly Lindholm, Zadorov. We don't suspect that Myers will be a huge issue, but we'll see. And then Dakota Joshua.
It's pretty extensive for a team that had as much success as they did last season. And for it to be the first year of success, you generally think, oh, okay, they're at the start of something. Surely there's not a lot of work to be done. Unfortunately, the way this whole roster came together, there's more work than you'd like at the start of your window. If this is indeed the start of a window, probably more work than most teams have it after the start of your window.
It's hard to make it work out perfectly, but
no, you're right.
Yeah. You'd love sort of a young team to grow.
That's right.
You know, they're your RFAs. You can just qualify them and check those boxes easily in the summer, and maybe have to deal with a situation or two, but not this many situations where you're juggling, but also probably going to have to get involved in the UFA market, probably going to have to get involved in the trade market.
Teams that have done it that way, Buffalo, Ottawa.
It's true.
How's it working out for them?
No, hasn't. Grady, answer us the poll question. We're asking on our poll question today. Do you expect improvement next season? We didn't hear from you on that. Dude, what do you think?
I think
yes or no? Which one are you voting and why?
I think you should expect improvement. Will they actually improve? I mean, a lot went right. A lot of, guys lived up to expectations, exceeded expectations. I'm going to just say no, just because I don't think you can expect everything to go as good as it did this year. Some guys might be better. Some guys might be worse. Yeah, I'll say no.
No, very much in line with what we both said. We'll see, though. We'll see what the summer brings. And if the summer brings personnel, you look,
hoping to change my answer after we
exactly. Allvin is a finalist for NHL Executive of the Year, and he's a finalist with good reason. You remember Saravilli at the beginning of the year saying the slam dunk runaway winner of this award, because he was out there making all sorts of trades while other general managers were defeatist, throwing their arms up. Oh, I can't make a trade, cap tight, dollar in, dollar out. Allvin was just going out there doing the work. They made significant improvements over the summer when it came to personnel. They found the right profile of player for Rick Tocchet for the most part, particularly with the big defenseman. And so
and he's got a great tutor in Jim Rutherford too.
Yeah,
who's been there and done that, and has all the contacts and has proof of concept in a lot of ways as well. So it sets up for a pretty interesting summer. And based on the acquisitions they made this summer, I think you have to give them every bit the chance that they can repopulate this roster.
Yeah, and look, it would be a hell of an encore.
It would be,
but I think if he doesn't quite get it to 100%, I think there's very good reason to believe and expect that he can go a long way towards the improvements he made last year and have a similar, if not as quite outstanding.
Keeping in mind, of course, this is still not the worst years of the OEL buyout. That's coming next summer, and the summer after.
But of course, we anticipate good increases in the salary cap year over year now. So there should not be as much pain as
that everybody else gets that too. And that floods the market even more. And it makes every player's,
it makes it a little more.
Yeah.
So. By the same token, yes. But if you are going to have to eat dead money, then go ahead and eat dead money in years where you have extra cap space than doing it in what these last few years have been, where eating dead money has been particularly expensive.
Yeah.
Because you haven't been getting the year-over-year increases. Next year, Oliver Ekman-Larsson is a $2.3 million and change cap charge. It's 4.7 for the 2 years, almost 4.8 in the 2 years thereafter. Wow. It's 2.1.
So harsh
for 3 years. No, that was a huge buyout, but it was a buyout that had to happen if they were going to improve the club last year.
It's why Tom Wielander and Jonathan Lekramacky are so integral here.
Yes.
Not for this coming year, but after that, they need those 2 entry-level contracts to be contributing contracts, probably the summer after this. So,
yeah. A reminder, you can shop for the Canucks Army t-shirt, the We Have an Army t-shirt at Nation Gear right now. You can rep your favorite team. It's an exclusive We Have an Army playoff tee and more. You shop at nationgear.ca for that. All right, so any minute now, Patrick Allvin and Rick Tocchet, the brain trust of the Vancouver Canucks, are going to take the podium down there at Rogers Arena and speak in their year-end media availability. Of course, we're also going to hear from these gentlemen, well, certainly from Patrick Allvin, as we get to next month's National Hockey League draft in Las Vegas. The Canucks without a first or second round pick. But, and I saw J-Pat note this, it is, and it's funny because the years that we've expected a lot of trades at the draft, there haven't been as many. The years where we haven't expected trades at the draft, we've seen some trades.
So there will be no trades at this year's draft. That's what we'll say at this point in the proceedings. There will be no trades at the draft.
Well, yeah.
Lower expectation.
We'll see. I mean, the other thing here is, who do the Canucks have to trade? Like
in my own brain, I was just thinking, you know what about Höglander? Höglander makes $1 million. Whatever you get out of Höglander is whatever you get out of Höglander.
Yeah.
You know, if you
can you move Mikheyev? Don't know.
I think
are you willing to retain to move Mikheyev?
Let's send it down to the ring.
How many chances?
Here's GM Patrick Allvin and Rick Tocchet.
And my message to the players is that this is something you're going to bear with you the whole summer, that we lost our last game, and that was only in round 2. It's just going to get harder. And you can talk about the tough learning for some of the guys that haven't been in the playoff environment. And it sure is a different animal. They're playing 82 games versus getting in every second day, and every game is just getting harder and harder. So can't say enough, but the fans and my experience being in Vancouver here, it was amazing what they did for us. The one game that stands out is when we're down 4-2 against Edmonton, and the fans gave us a win 5-4 there with Garland's late goal. It was amazing. Driving in game days and watching all the jerseys, I mean, guys talked about it. Ryan Johnson, my assistant GM, kept saying, like, hey, you wait on a sunny day when the playoff is in Vancouver. It's just amazing. So I think the players expressed their appreciation to the fans. They expressed their interest. They want to stay here. They want to continue to build. And I'm pleased with the process from the coaches, how they work with the players. But that being said, not satisfied.
You talk about not being satisfied. At the same time, this group took some big strides, accomplished a lot. How does what this group did this year color how you approach things going forward with some tough decisions to make this summer?
Yeah, and I think that's the meetings I'm going to have with Rick and the coaches here moving forward, and with the hockey operations staff. And as I said, the players expressed their interest to stay. We all know have a salary cap, so we want to be a competitive team moving forward. So it's only so much I can pay certain individuals, and hopefully we can find ways to keep a lot of players, because I do think that a lot of them have a chance to, with the coaches here, take the game to the next level.
Rick, congratulations on winning Coach of the Year. Petey came in here a little while ago and said that he was playing with an injured knee. Said that it happened in January and that it got worse as things went on. Was there any consideration to holding him out for a period of time then to potentially letting him rest to be better down the stretch?
Yeah, I think he has some tendonitis. No, you obviously go through the doctors and the trainers, and we felt, it was fine to keep going. But yeah, no, we didn't feel we had to shut him down.
And Patrick, it looked like this team, while it accomplished a lot, it looked like offensively, even when Brock was healthy and Petey was healthy, that they may have still been a forward short, a top 6 forward short. I know that was a big topic of conversation around the trade deadline. Watching the way things played out, is that something, in hindsight, you might have been more aggressive at that time of year, or did you do everything you could do? And how did you see it as it played out?
Yeah, I think we had when we talked about the lineup and the roster we had and moving forward, and where we can allocate money and what would give us the best chance to win games in the playoffs. We felt strengthening the middle was a priority with Elias Lindholm. Would I have access to more assets and money, I would definitely added a top 6 forward. But we didn't have that opportunity, and I think that's something we're going to look at here to see what part of our lineup we need to improve on. We still have a lot of younger players that are knocking on the door, and with a good summer, should be ready to take a big step.
Rick, congratulations. Thanks. I always knew you could be a 500 coach, so
I just made it.
A couple of questions rolled into one, but it's about your staff.
Yeah.
Do you, and I'm thinking partly of Sergey because he's sort of part-time.
Yeah.
But do you expect all of your staff to be back? Do you expect to add anyone to your staff, perhaps, to coach the power play?
Yeah, we're talked yesterday. Patrick and I try to keep this intact. Yeah, you're looking at all options. The power play obviously is something we got to look at. I'm not quite sure it's I think it's more of a connection thing for me. Game 7, 4-minute power play. I don't think it's about plays. I think it was about a connection thing, and that's on me. I got to get these guys connected a little bit more when the pressure hits. You got to remember, Edmonton's been in that situation the last 7-8 years in those power play situations. It's the first time for those guys, and we got to make sure that going into next year, that when those situations arise, we can handle that those situations. So. When you got the twins, you got Gonchar there, you got Yogi and myself. I think it's a pretty knowledgeable staff. I don't think you just need, me personally, is if there's a guy out there that I feel is the guy I would look at, but I don't know if that's the case here personally.
Okay. And for you, Patrick, I mean, you talked about it in your opening statement about, having lost Game 7 and remember that over the summer. You have a lot of young players who this is their first taste, and you probably know yourself, often the teams that get that first taste, they regress the next year. And it happened here in 2020. It even happened back in the Sedin's Luongo team. The first time they made the playoffs, they missed the next year. Are you concerned about that you have, again, so many young players who haven't handled winning? That's something you have to be aware of.
Well, I would lean towards the opposite. I would think they're gonna have a taste of it now, and I would hope they're gonna want it even more. And for us as a staff, myself and Rick, it's about communication here, and we have set the standard here now, where the players know what the expectations are coming into training camp, and we got the respect back. Game 1 next year is going to be hard because we won the division. They all know that we're a good team. I think, based on the conversation I had with the players, they wanted more. They got a taste of it, and they understand now that some of them said they didn't understand how hard every single game was. That you played Game 1, and suddenly one day later you're going to play Game 2, and it just get harder and harder as we go. And I think that's where good teams. I think we talked about practice habits too, or practice habits needs to be better. the first half is about building up for the second half, and I think that's where I saw some inexperience from our players, that they weren't prepared to play meaningful games in February, March, and April. We got to be better there.
Patrick, we've congratulated Rick, but we should congratulate you as well on the being a Jim Gregory finalist. What does that mean to you?
Well, I believe, and we believe that individual success comes from team success. And in this particular case, it's definitely, it's not about me. It's about what the coaches have done to the players. And in the end of the day, I think the players contribute to this award. My staff, they've done a tremendous job, and it's hard. I'm sure he said the same thing. It's hard when you're sitting here and you lost. Individual awards, I respect it, and I'm happy that my peers voted, but I would rather have a team award.
And Rick, we don't get to see much of how you and Patrick interact. Can you talk to us a little bit about what your relationship has been like this year, and what he's been like as a general manager for you as a coach?
Yeah, I think when you go through an interview process, I've been through a lot in my my career, and a lot of people, GMs, when you interview, they always, what's your relationship? How do you feel a relationship with the GMs is? And I'm very lucky. I mean, I got a little bit of a runway with knowing Jim and Patrick, but the personalities, how we mesh, even the way Patrick acts with our other coaches, like it's a tight group. He's around enough to be around. Like, he's not in our faces, and he loves the feedback, even feedback that he doesn't want to hear, and he takes it very well. And sometimes he doesn't. No, I should say. But I just think the connection. I think you have to be connected to your GM, and there's going to be some bumpy days and stuff. But I think the communication is outstanding, just like the organization and stuff like that. That's the one thing the year and a half I've been here, like. You're going to go through issues here and there, but I think the communication has been awesome. The best, probably the best I've ever had as a head coach. Definitely.
Rick, in terms of creating a winning culture here, I'm curious how your relationship with Patrick helps create that. Like, what do you take away from management in terms of building a winning culture? I'm sure you get the players, you're in the room with them, but from management, what are you taking away from them? Or are you taking something and transferring it to the players? How is that winning culture being built from management from your perspective?
Well, I think you got to, you talk about systems and what kind of how you want to play, and then obviously the management GM, they try to tailor that to the system and what the coach likes. But it's not just, it's obviously like I value their opinion too. This guy, but playing this guy, this type of player, do you need this? I couldn't be a GM. It's a hard job to piece things together, because coaches, all they want is want, and it's hard to get, right? But that's why I feel like we're connected in the sense, I think we know how to play, how we want the Canucks crest, and how we want to play. I think we're all on the same page, and it's good to have some good debates on whether it's this player or this draft pick or whatever. Well, not the draft picks for me, but more the players and the way we play. Patrick gives us a lot of autonomy when it comes to that, how we play system wise. And when it comes to players, like I said, they value our opinions, and even like Footy and Gaunt or Yosi, he values those opinions too. I think that helps create that environment.
Patrick, a lot of the guys who are free agents had very strong playoffs. Some of them didn't. How much does that weigh their playoff performance as opposed to regular season performance weigh on how you will try to re-sign them, or how aggressively to re-sign them?
Yeah, I think you longer you have a player, and you more you see them in critical games, you more you get to know about them. And I was very pleased with a lot of them's performance here, and how they expressed their pleasure to work with the coaching staff, and how much the coaches have helped them to be ready for those situations. And as I said to each one of them, my preference is to keep them, but I also gonna find a way to keep them where money gonna make sense for us in order to be competitive moving forward.
Do you have, like, I'm sure you've known this is coming for a long time, but do you have like a pecking order in your head? This is the way I'm going to go to you first, then you. Like how I'm just wondering from the inside, how are you kind of approaching?
Yeah, that we have different ideas how we want to structure our team moving forward, and conversations with Rick, the prioritize, and we have early conversations leading up to the playoffs with some of the players, and we decided during the playoffs to keep it quiet here. But again, I think we have also a lot of younger player in our system here that deserves to get an opportunity coming training camp, and we might leave some spots open for them to come in and compete and give us more.
Patrick, understanding now that Elias was playing through something over the second half, but also hearing Talk say that you didn't think about sitting him down, he didn't look anything like the player that put up 102 points a year ago and was the player of the month or one of the stars of the month in January. What did you see and what didn't you see from Elias down the stretch and into the playoffs? And now with the new contract kicking in, obviously, expectations and pressure come in a market like this one. So what do you guys as an organization have to do to help him get back to being that dominant player?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. The expectations comes, and I don't know what he said when he was sitting up here, but I'm sure he wasn't pleased with his performance after the All-Star break, and I think he learned a lot. I think he's hungry. He expressed it right away that he knows what he needs to improve on here in the summer, and he wants to come back and be a really, really impactful player. His talent level is unique. I mean, that doesn't go away. Again, I think this was his first playoff experience, playing every second day with traveling, and when you're being a player like him and Quinn Hughes, they all gonna play harder against you. So what do you learn, and how do you prepare yourself leading up for the second half? And I think, to be honest, some of the additions we did last summer was to bring in guys with that experience that could help us, teaching the young guys what practice habits are the first part. And I think we got to get better. I think our guys knows that you prepare yourself the early part of the season for what's coming the second part. And I think that's something that coaches we have here, they have the experience. It's about willingness to be coached and listen and execute.
And you were asked earlier about the lack of scoring from the wings. That became a bit of an issue. How do you make sense of Ilya Mikheyev's final 60 games with one goal, playing every night, playing in the top six a fair bit? And is there an NHL player there that can contribute to a team that wants and needs to get better?
In Ilya? Yeah, I truly believe so. It wasn't his fault that he was put in a top six position. It was my fault. I don't think anybody was expecting Ilya Mikheyev to be a top six player. He's a good mid-six player, and we all know guys that miss playoffs. Oh, sorry, missed training camp, especially with the injury that he had. And I mean, I'd never seen a guy working harder at his game to get better. And obviously, it's sad to see somebody losing his confidence as he did. He created chances and he played hard for us. I'm convinced that he's going to come back and provide the value that he has, and the intangibles as he brings with speed. But again, my job is to put players in a position where they belong and for them to be successful. And Ilya is a good penalty killer guy, and he's a guy that could play in different positions, both sides, and I'm sure he's hungry to come back and remember. I think his first 20 games, he produced there, and then unfortunately for different reasons, he lost, I believe, his confidence.
Rick, your team was very potent offensively during the regular season. During the playoffs, the lack of shots became a major talking point. You pointed to a lack of execution with missed shots, but are there some things in terms of systems that you will look at during this offseason to make adjustments heading into next season?
Yeah, I'd be crazy not to. I got to do a deep dive. There is some simple things of hitting the net, working on your shot, changing angles. I mean, that's things you got to work on. And it's my job to make sure these guys keep developing that skill. There could be some system stuff there. We have some really good hockey minds in that dressing room, coaching staff. So we'll look at that stuff. I still think, I still believe, I know a lot of people here like shot volume, which I don't mind. I'm not quite sure just throwing a puck at that with nobody in front. Now we got to get some guys to get to the net. We need more net front presence, things like that. But yeah, no, that, I guess to answer your question, yeah, I got to look at myself and look at a deep dive. Can we give the player? I always feel that as a coach, you got to give the players something to look at, and maybe in going into the training camp, maybe something we'll work on a little bit more offensively instead of. I think we were heavy system last training camp. I wanted to make sure that guys knew exactly what we needed at certain times, and I think we were successful because we did that training camp. I think that next training camp might be a little bit different, a little more creativity, a little more skill oriented. That will help some guys, but the good old fashioned, we need people to get to the net. But we gotta get that in there too.
One of the things that we saw, it was a major difference from previous seasons, was you limited rush chances against odd man rushes, but you didn't attack much in transition. Did that lack of attacking off the rush make it more difficult to put teams on their heels during the playoffs?
Yeah. And it comes from execution too, and getting your defenseman in the rush. I love the makeup of our D. It's big, gangly. You keep McDavid at I don't know how many 3 assists and 5. Like that's hard to do. And I think that I credit our D from that. So sometimes you got to take a little bit. You got to rob Peter to pay Paul sometimes, right? But saying that, we do have to get better on the rush and more execution. I think at the start of the year, first half of the year, I think we got some good luck. We scored on a 3-on-2. Our conversion rate was high. Second half, it wasn't, and we weren't getting a lot of 3-on-2s and 4-on-2s. But it's another thing we got to look at for sure.
Patrick, knowing what you have already on the roster, what would you like to add to the roster? Other than Wayne Gretzky.
I already gave him the list.
Yeah. And it's a short list. No, I think we're going to continue to see and a top 6 winger would be nice. I think we need to add some speed. But again, for us is to meet with my staff here and see what we have in-house. And as I said, I'm sure a lot of players in Abbotsford took big steps here. So we'll continue here over the next couple of weeks and see where what we have in terms of free agency and the players going to stay here or how much cap space we have left.
And Rick, looking at the Oilers series in the end, is there something you wish maybe you'd done differently in terms of setting your lineup, whatever it might be?
Yeah, it's tough to play the what if game. The lesson I learned, well, it's a lesson. You go into this season. Obviously that 4-minute power play. I think Mick had that chance on that breakaway. You wish you could. What if we scored a goal? I think that would have loosened us up. Is I think once. We didn't score the power play. It wasn't great. I felt a lot of tightness from guys. Our execution went for there was about 20 minutes. We had a tough time making a tape-to-tape pass. It looked like a lot of guys, to be honest with you, wasn't they were nervous. I'm not sure they wanted the puck. I think there was more like playing safe, and that's when Edmonton started to come. When we got down 3-0 in the third period, it was like you could see. Connor Garland led the charge. He goes, "Give me the puck," and that's the style we wanted. So I think it was a lesson learned. So I guess your question is, yeah, I learned under pressure that we got to, maybe we got to figure with experience, handle when teams hit the pressure on us. How do we handle it? I thought this year, we made strides in that, over the year. So I got to give the guys credit, but that game 7 is the ultimate test, right? I mean, that's ultimate pressure. And I thought there was a 20-minute, we didn't handle it well. And, the 11 guys at first time in the playoffs, the young, the Huggies and P, never been in those situations. That's the way they got to they'll be better for it. So I think that'll help. Plus the coaches, I got to come up with other ways if that ever happens again. How do we handle it better? So I think everybody takes a piece of the pie and gets better at it.
Patrick, quite a few players this year enjoyed career best seasons in Rick's system, including some of the free agents that you signed last year. Do you think that makes Vancouver a more attractive place for free agents this summer? Do you hope to leverage that?
Yeah, and I think I said it last year too. That was something I recognized, and the conversations here. How can you not be excited about how the fans treat the players and the excitement around here? And Jim, Rick has said it several times that the respect we get back here, the players deserve it, playing for the crest again. And I also believe that the staff we have here get recognized for how they work with the individuals to become better. I feel that that's attracting part of the game nowadays.
Quinn Hughes took another step forward this year, playing alongside Filip Hronek. How much credit do you give Hronek for unlocking that side of Hughes, and how does that play into the upcoming negotiations?
Yeah, no, I think they played really well together. Two good puck moving guys. I think there is part of their games that I like together, but I also think that they're capable of having their own pair. I think you can get more out of Hronek offensively. I think he maybe played a little bit cautious with with Quinn at times, backing him up and giving him the puck. But I know they really like to play together. We expressed to Phil that we want to keep him here and be a part of us moving forward, and we'll see if we can get the deal done. But we still he's an RFA, so we control him here for another year.
Patrick, big picture, it's clear from the way you've spoken throughout this availability that you're not going to be content to just run in place, that next year you want to go further than this. And yet we know how challenging with the cap and with all your expiring players it's going to be to just return this team, much less get better. When you think about the puzzle pieces and how they fit together, just big picture, what's the main challenge as you're considering it going into this offseason?
Well, the main challenge is to fit 23 players on the roster. That's always the biggest challenge, and I think that's where our job here is to build the roster and the lineup and see what areas that we're willing on to. As I said, to put some younger players in, and by allocating money, I believe our goaltending or back end is not the best. One of the better ones in the playoffs. In the middle, we were really strong, and I don't know. That's something we need to talk about to see what the formula works. And I think it's somehow a copycat league, but you're also going to be projecting, how are the other teams going to be built this summer, and what type of hockey are we going to see next year? We know that a lot of teams in our division are going to be good even next year. The West was impressive this year, really impressive. So this is something we're going to talk about here over the next couple of weeks, but it's a challenge to get the pieces in the puzzle.
With
I think Rick described the defense core as gangly a little bit earlier in this press conference. You've got Dakota Joshua, Myers, and Zadorov, three guys who share some common traits in that they're towering presences, play with some snarl and heaviness in your lineup. How crucial is it to maintain the size edge that seemed to be such a significant part of this team's identity as the year went along?
Yeah, we wanted to keep all those guys, as I said, and hopefully we can come to an agreement and work with them. And again, for me, it's not about giving one guy all the money. It's about finding ways to be competitive and finding ways to have players that are able to improve, as we saw this year. Dakota, we're coming in here highly recommended by my staff, and we have seen him over the 2 years for him to take steps, and we'll find the next Dakota Joshua here to the coaches to work with. I'm confident in my staff to be able to provide the right personnel for Rick and his coaches to work with and be successful moving forward.
Rick, the season ends very abruptly, Game 7, and some of your players have mentioned that. So with your experience as a player and as a coach, what do you tell the players going into the offseason so that they get that rest that they're needed and they're not, fixating over the next 3 months about that Game 7 and what could have been different if different situations played out?
Yeah, I think obviously the exit means 20, 30-minute conversations, you go through each guy, but these 30 minutes that's it. Like, it's not this it. I mean, I'm going to be in contact. I might be flying to see a couple of guys. It's 4 months before training? It's a 3-4 month thing. It's not, I can't get it done in 30 minutes. There's some players in there that they know they have to get better fitness. Certain guys there, they got to work on their shot. That's the feedback as a coach you have to give. But then all of a sudden, as the summer goes, it's keeping in touch, make sure your staff are talking to certain players. We did that a little bit last year. I thought it really worked. And we're going to do it probably even a little bit more. Sending video to the players this summer, I think is really important. Mental reps. These are the sort of things you want to talk to your players for the half hour. But there's just so much more. And so I think it's weird when you lose. You don't think you're going to lose, and then when you lose the next day, everybody feels empty, right? You're not. That's the hardest part. So can you channel? Can you take the feelings that you had when you lose and what ifs for your training and your motivation and how you're going to get better? That's really what the summers are for. The other 30 or the other 28 teams are saying the same, or 20, whatever what's my math? There's 4 teams left. 28 teams are saying the same thing right now. So we just got to make sure that we have a motivated group next year, and it's up to our staff here to make sure that they get the message.
Thanks, everyone.
Good. Thanks.
Hey, everybody, if you're enjoying what you're seeing here, then follow along with Sekeres and Price on YouTube. I promise more content coming.
The kids call it subscribe on YouTube.
Well, how about liking it?
Do that as well.